Yeah,
Two.
everybody,
Yeah.
what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Save
Save
the Date.
the
I'm one of your
data.
hosts, Heath.
What's good, everybody? I'm your other host, Jamie O. And today we're talking
Today,
about RESPECT. Find
Reese's
out
Pieces.
what it means to me.
Yeah, so the title of today's episode is Respect, the Core of All Healthy Relationships.
Mm,
And this is going to be a little interesting because normally, and even currently, you hear a lot of talk about respect, but it's usually one way. It's about women need to respect their man. Men don't look for love, they look for respect. And we're going to broaden that conversation today. Not to say that that narrative is false, but we do want to think about ways in which respect can cover the entire relationship both ways and also extend outside of the relationship. So I think it's just important just to get started. I'll take it first, to really think about dignity. And I've said this before on the podcast. Everybody, every single human being is entitled to dignity. Dignity is just our inherent worth as human beings. And every interaction I hope you have in your life, you're able to give people the dignity that they deserve, because everyone deserves dignity. Now, every situation you enter into your life, you may not be able to for a variety of reasons we are not going to unpack right now. But it is my hope and prayer that in your more intimate relationships, you are able to surface dignity. Now, what's the difference between dignity and respect, which we're talking about today? Dignity is what you inherently have or you're inherently owed or what you should inherently give. Respect is something that's earned. And oftentimes we think, well, respect is something I need right now. And yes, you probably do, but you have to think about respect in terms of two things: your work and the time. Your work, because it takes work to build respect. You come into a new work opportunity, you're starting a new gig, you want respect. You get respect by showing up and showing out. We used to say show and prove. You show up and you prove who you are to the people you're working with and the people you're working for. That's how you earn respect. And it's not just you do it on the first day of work and you don't do it again, but you have to do it day in and day out for months, for years, to earn someone's respect. And this is important in terms of dating because I want people to get a better understanding of the labor that goes into cultivating healthy relationships, especially for people who are utilizing dating as a pathway to finding, discovering love. You have to sojourn with somebody for quite some time to build that respect. And you're going to have to be consistent and show and prove. And not just on the first date, but on the first date, the 88th date. You're going to have to keep showing up and showing out and being that consistent person. And that opens the door. That lays the foundation for you to receive respect. And that's just what we want to talk about out the gate, that there is work to having respect. It's not just give me respect. Dignity you're entitled to. Respect has to be earned.
wow. Coming out the gate with
Oh,
two
yeah.
guns blazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because a lot
Respect
of
and
people coming at this
dignity.
whole respect thing and they think that it's just owed to them and you have to earn it. You have to
Yeah.
earn it.
I think there definitely is a respect that is earned over time, like you said. And when you're thinking about time, like I often think about, at least in the context of dating, that initial phase when you're first getting to know somebody, and it's like there's an awkwardness when you're first getting to know them, and sometimes that requires a little bit more patience and grace, because there's going to be moments of miscommunication where they may misconstrue what you said either by text or even verbally. But I think that's a way that people could show respect in that initial phase, is just having some patience and grace for some kind of, flubs, maybe some social awkwardness somebody might have. And like you said, that's from when you first meet somebody up until, when you guys establish titles or some kind of long-term intention. That kind of respect and dignity still has to be there. I'm glad you drew that differentiation. And I don't think that means, having this patience, I don't think it means that you have to bend over backwards or acquiesce or make somebody more favorable than they are. But it is kind of a hesitancy about judgment. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times we can make snap judgments, especially when we're just meeting somebody and it's like, well, you don't even have a Dior bag, or you're not even driving the Bugatti. So like, what do I need to respect you for? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Or have this kind of grace and patience with you for. But even if there's some awkwardness there, I think the respect is understanding that they're different from you, and you're meeting everybody at a very genuine and authentic point of life. And that's a consideration or a courtesy that you could give them, understanding that, you might need some consideration and grace and patience for your flaws or idiosyncrasies. I think you're on mute.
You're absolutely right. I think that at the end of the day, that patience is going to be critical to cultivating respect because it won't happen overnight. But what are you seeing immediately that allows you to say, okay, this person's making deposits, this person's trying, this person's making effort, and that should be respected, that should be honored, and it should be considered, especially when there's a breach of trust or a perceived breach of trust, because that will
Will
happen.
happen. Yes.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, the breach may not really happen, but the perception will happen. Your perception is always there. It's an ever constant voice in how you're interpreting your reality and interpreting reactions with your partner or date. And you want to make sure that you're absolutely right, that you're considering, okay, this seems like a breach of trust. Let me talk about it. Let me communicate. Let me figure out what's happening. Don't just think that someone's doing a rug pull on you when they don't pick up their phone because they're 5 minutes late to a date.
Yeah, I was gonna say that perceived breach of trust thing is real because I remember one time talking to somebody and we hadn't been intimate, but we had just exchanged a whole bunch of like spicy texts. And I remember saying something like, I want to be a good slut for you or something like that. And she texted me back and was like, yo, this just made my whole body shut down. Any use of like demeaning words or things like that
Yeah,
just shut my body. And then now, mind you, I'm saying this is what I want to be to her. Essentially, what I was saying was just like in the moment, I wanted to be her like intimacy toy to use and do whatever she wanted to do. And that was just
hmm
the word that came out. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
the perceived breach was there because obviously she had a thing about those kinds of words, which she expressed. And it was just like after that, I was just kind of like, well, I hope there's a place where you and I can get to where I can just not be censored or things that I say don't offend you in that way or they don't shut your body down. But yeah, that
absolutely.
perceived breach is real.
Yeah, especially in the beginning parts of dating where you have needs. You have little small, I would call nuanced needs. For example, maybe you go out with, a gentleman, a young woman does, and she expects a man to open the door or pull out a chair. Maybe that man's been on dates with women where he's tried to do that and they're like, yeah, don't do that to me. I don't know you like that. And I really don't trust what you're doing. For example, it's great to open the door for a woman, right? For example, when you go to a known restaurant. But if you're going into a new restaurant, it's good for you to walk in first because you're inspecting the place. Some women don't like that.
Gotta
Some
assess.
women, yeah, don't. Some women don't want that. So, all right, now I'm on a date with you. You want that. I don't know that. Well, then let's talk about it. We swim in water, but we don't exist in water. We don't live in water. We can't just be, 20, 20 feet below the water line, just chilling, having coffee and sipping espressos. You can't do that as a human being. So every relationship has constraints, and there are certain things your partner can do or they can do easily. So these are 4 categories, right? Number one, there's certain things they can do and they can do easily. There's certain things they can do with difficulty. There's certain things they don't know how to do, but they can learn how to do them. And the fourth thing is certain things they're just impossible for them to do. And when you talk about cultivating respect, think about where the actions that either bother you or that you like fall within those categories. Because ultimately what happens is as you go along and sojourn with somebody and you're dating them, you're going to encounter all 4. Things they can do easily, things they can do, but they do it with difficulty, things they don't know how to do, or they're willing to learn how to do, and the 4 things that are impossible to do. And you'll encounter the last 2. Let me talk about them. Maybe your partner's never been skiing before and you want to try skiing. They don't know how to do it, but they're willing to learn how to do it with you. And that may make you feel like, oh, wow, this person really respects who I am, what we're learning about, what we can learn together. That's great. Or maybe your partner has a big knee injury and you want them to get into combat sports with you, but they can't. It's impossible for them to do that at this juncture in time. Will they lose your respect because they're not going to kill their body to satisfy you or have an experience with you? Will the respect factor go down when you hear no or you hear, hey, I really can't do that? That's not for me, or I really can't do it. Like I'm physically or emotionally or psychologically unable to do this for you. Is that going to create an opportunity for disrespect? You should also think about in the context if they've been giving you respect and you've had respect for them this whole entire time and they've been consistent. Now here comes this one thing or this second thing or this third thing out of the million of things they do right for you that they can't do. Is your respect going to go down? And I want to challenge us because we have to deal with our limitations and our partner's limitations, certain things they can't do. And what happens, I see often in relationships, is people start to judge others, and then they start to lose respect.
Respect. Yeah.
So the person, after they say they can't do the martial arts with you, or they can't do the combat sports because of their knee, they bring up running. At one point they were a runner, and then here comes the sidewinding comment. Here comes, well, you ain't really a runner. That's maybe why your knees is messed up. Or here comes, a passive aggressive comment about how then you don't support them, or you don't feel supported because they didn't participate in this activity with you. There goes the disrespect. And it's really, really important that when you encounter your partner's faults and flaws, and they have them, and their limitations, which aren't a fault or flaws, are just limitations, you still give them the respect they need. And this is especially important in public. A lot of us sometimes deal with partners that maybe if you're paying a bill, they're not too good in the math or the tip. Sometimes they're bad at parking cars, they're bad at driving, and you're getting frustrated with them and their inability to do this task well. And here comes the disrespect. Please be mindful of that in public. If you have an issue with something, that doesn't mean you have the license to disrespect. It means you have the license to confront and work on the issue together in a suitable, respectful way, usually in private.
Yeah, that's a good one. Man, I think I've definitely been guilty of that before when I'm around. Like somebody actually recently said to me, I have big annoyance energy. Like I get
Mm-hmm.
annoyed and aggravated
Mm-hmm.
with people really quickly over
Mm-hmm.
like small things because maybe I think my brand of meticulousness or being detail oriented is a standard above somebody else's. And but I know in the past I've definitely done that with family when it's
Yeah.
like, man, why do you ask me to come out with you? You can't even park the car right. And I mean, I might be saying it in jest, but it's still something that's sincere on the inside. Like,
Yeah, yeah. They're circling. Don't want, I don't want to get in that spot. That spot's too close.
yeah,
It could be anxiety. Maybe they want to go out and have a good time, but they're concerned about their car. I just paid for the mechanic, and here you are making this comment. Yeah.
it's so crazy you bring up anxiety just to kind of, spitball with this. I feel like sometimes we have anxiety of not knowing or not having the answer. And that's the reason why we get frustrated with other people because it's like
Mm-hmm.
we're not in the driver's seat. So we don't have any control over where the car is getting parked or what time we arrive, this, that, and the third. And it looks like we have anxiety about not doing things the right, or at least I should say I do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I can get into that. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring up the word anxiety as it relates to that.
Absolutely. Because I've seen people disrespected in public. I've seen it with couples. It's happened to me. You get it, you're in public. There's something your partner wanted you to do. You didn't do it quick enough, fast enough, strong enough, hard enough. And now they're raising their voice. They're creating a confrontational scene, usually around someone else. Even if, like, like, for example, in New York City, you can park at a place where there's a bunch of brownstones. So you think no one's listening, but someone's in that window
Oh,
like,
boy, just like a 227. You know what I'm saying? Who was the lady that used to head
was
out
it,
the window?
was Mary? Mary?
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh-huh. Yeah,
Looking,
exactly.
and you're being disrespected in the street, and it's hurtful, especially yelling. I just had this conversation today about yelling in the home and why yelling at times can be so demeaning, even if you're in private. And I get people do it. I've been there, done it, so I'm not going to chastise or judge anybody, but I get where you getting yelled at in public, now that partner feels like they have to respond in kind, especially depending on their traumas
Match your
and their
energy.
programming. I'm going to match
Hmm.
your energy, and now it's elevating. Could get physical, it may not get physical, I don't know.
Right.
But it's definitely gotten toxic in that moment. Doesn't mean your relationship's toxic. It means there's a moment in your relationship that was toxic or getting toxic, or the toxicity was reaching a boiling point, unhealthy point rather. And this is why respect is so important, of saying, you know what, don't like that. This is a legit issue for me. We'll talk about it later. Let's go to the restaurant. Let's go to the party. Let's go catch up with your friends, whatever it is. It's really just important that when you're in public, you're according that person respect. I had a pastor friend once tell me when he was first dating his wife, uh, they got into this major row. And what happened was he was invited to a fraternity brother's wedding, and he's bringing his now wife just on a date to the wedding. And he's chilling, and as he's, as you have the chairs and the circular tables, some nice little young thing with a fat butt walks by, and he just tracks it from like across the room, like not even like I saw it. He's like,
Rubbernecking.
yeah, I mean, he just does a whole and max headroom turn. She gets up. She goes, "You are never going to disrespect me like that in public. Get your stuff. I want to leave." Drives her home. She doesn't want to stay. Baby, baby, please. No, I ain't trying to hear that. I'm disrespected. Gets home, and He was very close with his mom at the time, God rest her soul. And she's like, "What happened? You guys supposed to be at this wedding?" He's like, "Well, I was at the wedding," and tells his mom the whole story about how he tracked that woman's butt. And his mom's like, "Whew, you got off lucky. I would have scratched your eyes out." And just how, just at the end of the day, for certain people, certain things are very disrespectful.
Mhm. Yeah.
I've heard men talk about women who are too chummy with strangers, other men in public, or strangers. And
Yeah.
there's all these ways in which your partner can feel disrespected. If you know what it is, be mindful of it. If you know your partner is sensitive of you checking other people out in public, either if it's an issue, confront it. If not, that doesn't mean you say, "Well, I'm just not going to be controlled," and start just mean mugging every fat butt you see in public, or every hot guy in public, just because he needs to stop being so sensitive or she needs to stop being so sensitive. I just find that to be disrespectful,
Yeah.
because anything that you're having an issue with is not life and death. It's not like, well, this is, I need water and you're not going to let me have water. Or it's disrespectful when you drink water when you're thirsty. Then now that's ridiculous. But certain things that you know that you like to do and you feel it's a problem for your partner, you can handle that in private. You don't have to make a scene in public and prove your point so that you can feel free.
And regardless if it's something you like to do or don't like to do, having a boundary is something that people need to learn how to respect. Even if it's something that they don't agree with, it's not a suggestion. My boundary is not a suggestion. Your boundary is not a suggestion. It's a
Hmm.
non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And your no is your no. So if it's no anal, if it's no PDA, like I think
Yeah. I've
you
seen
get
that.
to you get
Yeah.
to, but you got to stand on your business though, right? So like if you say, because I mean I think something like no PDA might be something
Let's talk about it.
that your partner or this person that you're dating may want you to be a little bit more fluid on, right?
Yes.
And so you may have boundaries that are meant to be a little bendable. And then you got some that are non-negotiables, right? So I think that always has to be a conversation with your partner, because obviously consent is big. You know what I mean? Like we live in a hypersensitive time and era about sensitivity. I mean, about consent.
Consent.
On the heels of the Me Too movement, on the heels of, more conversations about how to honor women's bodies and them having autonomy, like really takes a high level of sensitivity to be able to navigate that conversation, especially around intimacy.
Hmm.
So I think people have to really learn how to respect boundaries. Ask the questions that you need to ask. How come you have such a hard boundary about this? Is that something you're open to, maybe move the needle on, but to just see, like, try to test it and see if that person is like how much they can take in regard to that boundary. I feel like that's highly disrespectful.
And I agree with you. And PDA is a perfect example because I've heard so many stories. I don't like to hold hands. She likes to hold hands. I don't like kissing in public. He likes kissing in public. All these PDA rules. And there are times where someone really wants to connect with you physically in public, not to the point you're dropping your clothes off and going behind and going into the alley, but they want to have that moment of shared bliss with you, even if it's for a few seconds. And that person's like, "Nah, homie, I don't do that."
Ain't no getting busy in the Burger King bathroom over
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah, you ain't doing all that. You ain't doing all that. So
yeah,
you really have to think about, again, if they said no PDA, then I'm gonna say, okay, no PDA. If I'm going through a couple of dates and I'm not feeling that, it's gonna be a conversation. And then if I feel like it fits into one of those categories, all right, is this something that's easy for you to do? Obviously not. Is it something you could do but it's difficult? Well, if it's that, then I may challenge that and wonder how come there isn't a kind of playfulness or adventurousness, or what's going on here? There's more room there. If it's something that you have to learn how to do, that's also a great category to be in my opinion. I mean, all the categories are great, but I'm talking about as far as staying power in a dating scenario. The fifth thing, is it impossible for you to do? If it's impossible for you to do and I really need it, we may be at an impasse.
yeah. But I think what we're saying is, as long as there's some conversation about it and you're challenging it, is not testing it.
Hmm.
Like I
Yes.
think you hear sometimes when it's like, and I mean I hate this to say it and make it a gender thing, but you've just heard from a bunch of women. It's like, well, we might have been making out and kissing and touching, and I said, all right, that's enough. But they're trying to see if they can get
Oh,
past
yeah,
the
yeah,
third
yeah,
button
yeah.
now, or they're
Yes.
trying to slip the hand, and it's like, yo, bro, I
Yeah,
just I just said we
yeah,
good. Like, how
yeah,
come it
yeah, yeah.
can't just be that?
Yeah, yeah. How come it just can't be that? And yeah. And for some guys, it's because they associate time with a woman as getting off. Like, I got to get to that nut.
Or they have a warped idea about what being a man is and leading and taking control.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's a
That's a
narrative that
great.
I feel like we could surface at some point too. But I think, especially with intimacy, a lot of times, because I talked to you about this recently, I don't want to say I was taught that you're supposed to commandeer or take it,
Hmm.
but there's an element to that of like laying it down in the bedroom that I was kind of programmed to think had to be there.
Yeah.
And while I was also still very sensitive to consent, I in the past tested that limit to see how far I could go or how much they would let me get away with. And honestly, yo, that could have escalated in the wrong way. That could have ended up in somebody reporting a grape or a SA. All I say is to really be mindful about boundaries when it comes to intimacy, physical intimacy. That's what like the biggest thing I could say as it relates to that.
Absolutely. And that's the ultimate form of respect, is respecting where someone is willing to go and they're willing to stop. One of the additional things I want to say about respect is when you recognize that someone is great at what they do and you respect them for what they do, there's a lot of partners you end up respecting the way they plan dates, the way they show up for you on a date, the way they show up for you when you're hurt, when you're sick, when you don't feel well. Whatever you respect your partner about, tell them. Tell them often and frequently, and let them know that you respect them. Communicate it, frequently, consistently.
Mm.
This is important because we need to hear from our partners, especially on dates where you're dating somebody. Maybe you're not serious yet, but you've been on a couple of dates and you've really enjoyed them. And there's certain things they've done that you really respect. Highlight it. Let them know that they're seen, and let them know that they're heard. Every human being has a desire to be seen and heard, to be accepted. And if you can cultivate an environment between the both of you, or a dynamic between the both of you, develop a dynamic where you guys are going to celebrate each other and especially highlight when you respect them, it's going to be easier for you guys to overcome challenges and to get past slights or offensives that will emerge over the course of time in the relationship. Because at the end of the day, you could have a heated argument. That person's going to walk away and they're going to say, but I know this person cares about me, respects me. So what they may be perceived maybe as disrespect in the disagreement is going to be easily shrunk in their mind, because they're going to have all these references of you saying, hey, you did this, you do this, I respect you, and this is why I respect you, and this is why I see you as a person I can be with, or see you as a person that brings me joy, or I enjoy spending time with. That will change the tone and music of your relationship every single time.
Speaking of music, I made that reference in the beginning of the episode with the Queen of Soul,
Mhm.
Respect. But that second line of like find out what it means to me, that's also a form of respect. It's like understanding what somebody's definition of respect is. And I think a lot of times what I hear is that there are a lot of time being spent without intentions being talked about. And I think a great way to show respect in the beginning is letting your intentions be known. Whether you know if that's long term or not, at whatever phase you are of getting to know somebody, one of the worst things you could do is waste somebody's time. And I think if you are, whether it's casual for you or you want something more, just make those intentions known. No, make those intentions known.
I agree.
Because I had a situation, with the young one. I'm not gonna name no names, but I felt there was a period where I felt disrespected because I felt like she was accepting energy she knew she had no intention or reciprocating. And it's like if you allow somebody to catch feelings for you, or you see them moving in that direction and you're not, you'll be kind and pull the plug. I don't know. I can't really give you the language on how to
Hmm. To
to
do that.
stop that and put the car in reverse. But I think you as the person need to be thinking that way. It's a strong showing of respect and maturity and kindness and consideration and keeping somebody's dignity intact. All of the things that we're talking about, to be proactive and authentic and upfront with your intentions, and not to let somebody go too far with you knowing that you don't have the same energy for them.
And I think you said the most important thing, respecting someone's time, because the time that that person's investing in you, they'll never get back. Or at least they think that they're investing it, but they'll find out later rather than sooner they were wasting it.
Ain't no return on that investment.
And there is no return on that investment. There is no do-over. There's no go back and let's run that A/B test this way, and so we'll have a different result. That's not going to happen. And it's disrespectful to waste someone's time. It truly, truly is, for the simple fact money can be replaced. You can have more dates, but they cannot get that time back. They
I
can't.
don't want no Rolex. I want my time back.
Seriously, no pun intended. I want my time back.
Yeah,
I literally want my time back.
facts.
And we're not going to get it back. And you allowed me to stay on this course with you when you had early indications that this was not a fit. But you played into it, A, because you were bored, Maybe B, you were scared of being lonely. You were fearful of this season of your life you were in, and we were having so much fun together. So you figured, let me just ride it out with you until something better else comes along.
Mm-hmm. You
And
was
I'm
in it
not a
just to get
car.
what you want
I'm
out
not
of
the
it.
Honda you're going to get before you get to the Mercedes Benz.
Yeah, not the starter kit.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm a human being. And you disrespected me by wasting my time. I understand you were fearful. I understand this was a rough season for you. I understand that our dates together and our time together were full of joy and helped you, as quote unquote, escape your current life or the issues of your life. I get that, but not at my expense, and definitely not at the expense of one of my most valuable resources, my time.
Yeah, let's be respectful of each other's time.
Yeah.
And on that note,
And on that note, guys, thanks for listening. I'll save the date. We'll put the socials in the liner notes. Until then, it's Heath.
and Jamie, y'all be good.
Take care.
Peace.